Yeah, dog. Welcome to R2R. We're officially, what is it, live stream number 28? I think I hit that right on the dot. Yeah, it's live stream number 28, guys. If you're on YouTube, post notifications, smash the like button, drop a comment. You know the drill. Share it all over social media. If you're on X, pound the like button and retweet this bad boy. And hashtags all the Titanx Hyper. We're going to talk about Hyper. I was actually just watching, and we can tune in real quick before we get into Hyper. I was watching a live stream where Jake's talking right now on crypto Audi Kings. I used to call him Crypto Audit King, crypto Audi Kings live stream where he's talking to Jake right now, and we can tune in there. I think I can get volume to the browser. We'll kind of crash that, not crash it. Didn't get an invite to the live stream, but we'll check it out shortly here. Today, we're going to talk about what just happened. All right. Day 196. If we go to the tabs here on Hyper, everybody, and you go to the buy and burn and the Vortex, it's emptied out. It started fresh. That's because all the moolah that was in the Hyper Vortex finally got released and shifted to the Hyper buy and burn. Now look at this. Okay. Now you got $1 million of Titanx sitting in the Hyper buy and burn. That its sole purpose is to take the Titanx, buy Hyper, and burn it out of circulation. Then you go to the ETH that shifted from the Vortex. It got added on top of the ETH that was sitting here. So you got 3.6, almost $3.7 million in Ethereum sitting here. That's going to buy Titanx off the market, shoot it into the Hyper buy and burn over here, and then this bad boy is going to generate the buy and burn of Hyper. It's a beautiful thing. It's a crazy flywheel. Very excited for that. We'll get into strategies. What happened with the Vortex? The Vortex is doing exactly, and let me pull up the comment, no spoon. What happened with the Vortex? So yeah, the Vortex is doing exactly what it's supposed to do by design, right? So by design, the Vortex, it's like a savings deposit. You can look at the Vortex as like a savings account, right? And what the platform does with the savings account is with all the Ethereum that comes in to make Hyper miners, it shoots it into the Ethereum, a percentage into the buy Titanx pool here with Ethereum that you see. And then it puts a little bit into the pocket here. About 8% of the ETH goes into the Vortex from the Ethereum used to make the miners, right? And then 10% of the Titanx is bought off the market. So it comes straight directly here, and it's saved to release, every, 98 days? I believe it was 98 days, right? Let me double check in the white paper. Let me pull up the white paper so I don't give you any misinformation here on the Vortex. So yeah, this happens every 98 days. You're going to see this activity happen, and it's going to just keep it in the back pocket, right? To put it out into the smart contract at the perfect moment, every 98 days after being built. That way it can start to, and this can be changed. This is where Jake comes in, and Jake can adjust the amount of times that the buy and burn that's triggered with the Titanx that's already in the Hyper buy and burn contract, and anything that gets sent from the Vortex. Right now, it's every 180 minutes. So every 180 minutes, you have, what is that, 5.3 billion Titanx is used to buy Hyper and burn. So it just injects it as that gets depleted, and it just like brings it back to life. So right now, you're just seeing the very first time that this has happened, and people are like, well, what about the price of Hyper? Like, I think people thought that it was going to be all that Vortex money was going to buy it off the market for some reason, like for issues for slippage and all that. That wouldn't be smart. Now we're going to get into a few things. Let me see if I can pull up. Let's see. I think that's what he thought. I was confused. Thought it tanked Hyper price for a second there. You might be right there as far as what happened, because remember, payouts happened as well. And your global payouts, right? You get paid. It shows you here. When the cycle changes, this constantly is based on the amount of ETH in the cycle. Keep an eye out. So you actually get paid in Hyper. So people on day 98, this got triggered. If you remember Titanx, right? Back in Titanx early when staking was good, ETH got paid out. In this case, you're getting paid out in hyper. So what happened was people for day 98 got hyper and they dumped it on the market, which is good, right? That's a beautiful thing. Listen, when distribution of tokens come from, people of all walks of life, especially big wallet holders, you want them to sell. You want to get them out early. So obviously, if they were incentivized to stake to earn some hyper and they didn't save it, or they sold it to compound more miners, who knows? Everyone has their own story. That was what you saw take place last night and why the price dumped. But remember, as the price dumps, this is the counter effect here. You have now a ton of not only Titanx and ETH sitting there to buy and burn hyper at lower prices, meaning these smart contracts can buy a lot more. Let's jump to their live stream really quick and see if Jake's saying anything important here. Let me unmute it. Let me see if you guys can hear.
Is that Texas? Oh, it's Texas.
Yeah.
You know what? I've been
Texas, baby. Are you in Texas?
No, I'm in the good old North Carolina.
I think Mo just said something back to me.
What's with the Texas hat?
And you know what? I've been in all these live streams. I've been in all these live streams for Titanx for like weeks now. None of the people acknowledge me. Just Mo. Like Jake does it. None of the people that have these Titanx streams, they read everyone's comments before and after me and skip me. I don't have any hard feelings, but I do notice that,
Have you ever been to
obviously
a UT
had some
game?
problems, but let's see if they're talking about anything special here. Tell me if you guys can hear.
Have you ever been to a UT game?
Nope.
Bro, I don't want to start throwing disparaging things and start rivalries, but I went to Penn State.
They're you know what? They're talking about just random things. I'd rather get into this stream and give you strategy because they're just kind of hanging out there. That's going to be a 12-hour stream on Crypto Audit's channel. So going back to strategies here, you got to look at hyper and all these platforms here. I'm going to pull up Deck Screener. You guys have to take a look at what's going on as far as ratios. You're in the most important thing you can look at in the entire ecosystem is what's happening with ratios and understand what happened last night. What happened last night? Hyper got paid out to day 98 payouts for stakers, and then people sold off, which was, I wouldn't say an opportunity to buy because hyper is profitable right now. So it's cheaper to mine versus buy. Buying would it make sense, right? Right now, we just want to see people sell that have it liquid and the smart contracts burn them, right? But you want to pay more attention to what's going on with hyper. Type in one token on Deck Screener and go to Titanx. The ratio is 3.45. So every per one hyper, you can trade off 3.45 Titanx. And we want to watch that gradually increase. And how that increases is obviously the supply being burned and then users making miners, the smart contracts growing, they're going to continue to buy. And then understanding that versus Titanx, let's say Titanx does a 10x, right? Hyper is going to move with Titanx because it's heavily bonded via liquidity, right? And you got to think and look at market caps and the liquidity with Hyper. $574,000 of LP between two tokens that are not like Ethereum or a Bitcoin. So Titanx is going to be heavily bonded with Hyper. That goes up. And at the same time, when people do decide they want to buy Hyper versus the smart contracts, because right now it's humans versus smart contracts, right? The smart contracts are trying to absorb all of the Titanx right now and get it out of the hands of the users. Same thing's going on with Hyper. And in that environment, when you have a $3.4 million market cap, what could a smart contract with a combination of human beings as well, fighting for supply as it burns, do? That could 20x the market cap, which 20x is the value. And that's important to understand and strategize around there. Then your ratios change. And when these events happen, you go from a 1 hyper to a ratio of 3.45 Titanx to a 1 to 10, 1 to 15. Let me take a look at the chat. What's up, Bar Town? What up, bro? Jake said X28 to come out after 369. He doesn't see a lot of people aping before that, so he feels like it doesn't make sense. Yeah, I just saw him say that, And I was thinking, okay, so he basically says X28 is not going to be lined up with day 369 because he doesn't think people are going to sell or burn their stakes, right, for X28 because of the Dragon X days 369 payout. And I went in there and chat. I was like, forget burning my stakes, bro. I'm going to let the stakes sit there until they're done, because to get a 55,000X in Titan X, you're going to have to write it out for years based off math and the difficulties of the miners. A 55,000X wouldn't even be possible for another 2,000 days. Then you could achieve that. So pay myself later. That's how I look at it. Pay myself later. If you talk about Hex, Zen, Pulse, etc., and not being a one thing maxi all in Titan X, probably keeps those guys from embracing you. Yeah, they don't. I try to talk with them like in the comment section, and no one says anything back on every live stream. Mo was the first person actually today that actually acknowledged me. I was like, cool, because I was in there. You know, they were talking early on about like Jake fighting somebody for fun. I was like, I'll take the fight. I'll take the fight. I've been training my whole life. My kids train wrestling and boxing and MMA since they were 5. I'm in the gym every day of the week with them. I'm like, that stuff's fun. Not that I want to go and put a beat down on homeboy, but it would be cool. No one's like, I know Jake read it. No one wanted to take that to the table. A few people in chat did, but for fun, you know, like send the contract, bro. That'd be a lot of fun to you know, do all that. Get to showcase everyone's skills and have a good time. That'd be really cool. Even R2R Alpha incoming. What's going on, Revel? Glad to have you here. Long-term stakers will be the winners. Yeah, at the end of the day, you're mad about, like I was upset about staking and, you know, being diluted. But the bigger picture is forget the ETH. Forget the ETH. If you want the mega X's on Titan X, it's going to happen a long time. And who would self-destruct themselves and sell before then? Me. Off of emotion. If I see 1,000X, I'm selling. Shoot, if I see 500X, I'm selling. So to force that hand, the winning hand, is staying in that stake. Burning for X28 for peanuts would just be, gotta ignore it. Gotta ignore it. And, you know, the rest would be history, because later down the road, you collect that stake, and if Titan X is still bumping and grinding, which I think it will. It will have bumpy times. It'll have great times, good times, bear markets, you know, really spoil the fun for any case scenario. You could really turn out in some major profit. So back to what's happening with Titan X shortly here with the supply shock. So smart contracts, which are all the buy and burns, V1s, V2s, all the ones that are in existence right now, they are competing with us shortly here in the market, where they're going to be bringing the price up and we're going to be trying to buy it before they do. And all ties will rise together with Titan X. Titan X is going to go up because of this, the scarcity and how much the inflation has declined. So that's going to rise it up quicker than I imagine I've ever seen any cryptocurrency go up. And Richie B talked about this on live stream just the other day. Shout out to Richie B. And he said the God candle is going to be here shortly with Titan X. And that's because the you got to look at what's up, Moonshot. Long-term stakes only. Yeah, I agree. Long-term stakes only are going to be, you know, paid off. And what Richie B said was the green God candle is coming, and you got to look at the human emotion behind what's going on here. People have not realized what the supply shock's actually going to do. They look at it as going, okay, less inflation's coming, but we need more adoption. Yeah, we need more adoption to go into these protocols to snowball it. But look at the success of Hydra. Look at the success of Hyper starting to pick up because ROI is going up in miners. So you can still have the same users compounding and still have a good snowball effect while slowly adding users and be just fine with this type of hyper deflationary that's coming. And what they don't realize is you never battled it out. When Hex went up 10,000X, we weren't competing with smart contracts. It was player versus player, man versus man, woman versus woman, woman versus man. Now it's basically man versus code, man versus machine. Call it whatever you want to call it. Have you ever been in a market when you've competed with a smart contract on buying a token that's becoming scarce and going hyper deflationary? You tell me if you experienced that. Oh, wait, let me know. Let's see. Joshua, starting stakes not for payouts, but stop myself from selling. There you go. You know, pay your future self. I've been saying we need new users to 100% explode. Yeah, I'm on the same boat, right? I said I'm in the same boat. Like I was like, we need new users. We need new users. But in reality, the users that are making money now are compounding, and that effect's going to happen on social media where people are going to see the reason why the miner frenzy went crazy on Titanx early on is because that little share button. We'll pull up an example with Hyper. Titanx had this, right? Where you go and you're like, hey friends, let me share my miner, and then people were seeing, right? If I pull up one of my miners, numbers like this. Oh, whoa, 218%, 500, 800%. That was designed to be able to tweet it right out. So people were seeing this play out, and the excitement was building basically through social media. It was like the best marketing tool that they ever implemented. And that's when new users started to come in and say, I want a piece of that. Now that's happening again. Now you're going to see these pictures come about from not only Hydra, but Hyper, and people already played this game, so they know how to do this system now, and they're familiar with it, right? Vibra Finance, Hydra to the firmament. Hey man, thank you for stopping by. Big fan of your channel. Appreciate you, brother. So you're gonna have this marketing tool here to spread the word. People will slowly get in, and these numbers, right? Let's go to Hydra, for example. These numbers right now are freaking insane. 6.8 million, almost $6.9 million sits in the buy Dragon X with Titanx contract here, which is going to be utilized from Hydra buy and burn. You got almost $1 million in the Vortex. This is designed just like Hyper, you got to remember. And it's not kicking off yet. They haven't triggered it yet because they're trying to wash out everybody before they get this into action. So when all the flywheels are going together at the same time, and Hyper is already doing what it's doing, and then you go to Titanx, you got the V1 sitting there doing nothing. You got V2, all these other build on Titanx platforms. This is the first time ever. Has anybody in the chat told me that they've been experienced? I was there December 2019 when Hex released. I saw what happened through all those games, big payday. I lived through it all. But I wasn't competing with a smart contract. Maybe the OA address, maybe some Richard Hart wallets, but that's it. All right. So by design, we're going to experience something the unknown. We're going to experience something we've never seen before. And I think that in the near future, because deflation, we go hyper deflationary in Titanx, you're going to see something you've never seen before as well as far as scarcity. So no matter how big of a bag you have of Titanx, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's going to feel that way. It'd be enough for you to, at the peak, if you can do it, to sell and make some good gains, but it's going to feel like you don't have enough to leverage to make more. Because right now you have to play the leverage game. What's the leverage on Titanx? Well, leverage on Titanx is Dragon X. Titanx is a leverage of Ethereum. Dragon X now, you have Hydra is a leverage of Dragon X. And then you have Hyper, which is created way before, right? And it's already got the 1 to 3.45 ratio, was 1 to 5. And the mining frenzy didn't happen like Hydra ever at any point. Now it's starting to kick up. And now I think it's going to earn more respect and a lot more numbers are going to roll in. So let's see. I think early day people thought the early 5,000 ROI was in the bag. Yeah, I think a lot of people did think that. It was the 280-day miners that paid off. So if you did that, you were golden. Man, I tried to do a Hydra miner yesterday, but I couldn't connect, so I bought Dragon X instead. I'll share with you what my game plan is right now. Should I share it? Let me make sure we got enough likes on YouTube and enough on the post. I'll share with you my direct strategy, which I only shared in my private group last night. Let me take a look here. Hold on. I'm going into the post here on Twitter really quick. I'm going to make sure I have all the proper hashtags for this live stream. We got 78 people live on X. We'll see how much we have on YouTube, but hey, that's a good number. All I'm going to do is edit and make sure I put the right hashtags in this bad boy so that everything's on and popping, right? We want to make sure we get work for our bags. I'm doing a live stream. I'm trying to work for your bag, trying to get the word out there that we're doing this and get the show on the road. I think, oh yeah, DragonX. Got to do hashtag DragonX. There we go. So I updated that so that it picks up on the algorithm on Twitter. And again, guys, appreciate anyone's here. I don't want to ignore you guys. Yeah, share the ultimate strat. I mean, I saw it last night too. Yeah, you did see it. Oh yeah, you're in my private VIP group. So if you guys want an invitation to there or be able to join me in my Telegram, follow me on X. There's a link tree at the top, and it's got links to all my stuff, and there's a Telegram link there as well. So my ultimate strategy right now, all right, and this is coming from somebody who's collecting miners, every single day on multiple wallets with Titanx. So I got a Titanx miner last night on my public wallet. I got it like at midnight. So what I did was I went and I sold half and I created a long-term miner with Hyper, right? Some people are like, well, why don't you go with Titanx into Hydra? Well, Hydra is going to have, a lot of inflation coming out in December. There's going to be a lot of mechanics, moving parts. The Vortex version is going to release on Christmas Eve and all that. Understand that. So I'm putting low amounts of money into that, like $100 at a time, maybe like 500. So I sold half of my Titanx into ETH and used all that ETH to make a hyperminer, long-term, 88 days. The other half, right, because now you're in a case where we're going to have supply shock. We're going to have scarcity. And the only way to make more Titanx is the trade-offs with the ratios. The other half, right, I swapped for DragonX to have liquid. Why DragonX? Because of DragonX, based off the numbers you're looking at here, the buy and burn, how much money is here, which ultimately Hydra is created to bring in Titanx, right? You see here in this tab, Titanx gets used because you have to use Titanx to make Hydra miners. It gets used to go to here, right? It then buys DragonX off the market. Buys the DragonX off the market. Then you have the Hydra buy and burn where DragonX will be sent to. This here gets triggered like the V1, V2s you've seen on Titanx. So that from here, just click the tab. The DragonX that was bought with the Titanx that came through the miners, right, is used to buy Hydra and burn it. So DragonX is being swept off the market for that reason, right? And you have the Vortex that's going to come Christmas Eve, and that's going to inject another $1 million in Titanx plus growing more DragonX. So DragonX is being pulled off the market and put in here for the purpose of burning Hydra, which is like the leverage on DragonX. But you got to remember, hyperinflationary action is going to happen with Titanx. So that means Titanx is going to go up. DragonX is the leverage on Titanx and has been outperforming it by many X's because of it already being hyper deflationary. So when you have Titanx hyper deflationary and you add DragonX that's already hyper deflationary, then you have smart contracts versus players, users competing for the supply of all of these tokens, these two specifically. That means many, many X's, and the trade-off right now, let's go to DragonX and see what the trade-off is really quick. Let me pull up Dex Screener. Can go up massively. So, for example, if you took 1 billion Titanx today and you swapped it, and let's say we'll take a look at the number here really quick so it can be a little bit accurate. So the ratio right now, always focus on ratios, is 1 to 11.11 right now, right? So type in the number. We'll just make it a whopping, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million. So 1 million Titanx gets you 89,945 DragonX, all right? And it continues to outperform. And you can come back and what the ratio changes to a 1 to 15 or 1 to 20. If it goes to a 1 to 20, you're doubling your bag, right? You're doubling your bag there on Titanx when you come back to Titanx. That's what people are going to do to make more Titanx in their wallets because you can't mint it like you used to be able to mint it. So you have to understand the ratios. Come and type these in. Vice versa. You know, you'll see right here, typing one Titanx down here, one Dragon X to Titanx. You get the drill. So questions here. So, anyways, that's the strategy. And the reason why I did the hyper miners, right? If you look at hyper right now, it's in its second mining phase. This is the second period, which the first one only lasted like 2 weeks where there was ROI, 2 or 3 weeks, because Titanx went down. So now you're in a profitable situation to make a hyper miner. Inflation is not going to be crazy as it would be if we went into a miner frenzy when it first came out in March, because it's had 6 months of difficulty increases, which puts us in a scenario where now we have all of these buy and burn mechanics through hyper, Vortex adding to the hyper buy and burn. So Titanx is being bought with the ETH to burn hyper. So now we're fighting inflation. And then hyper, reason why you don't see anybody building on hyper yet, you can build on hyper, but Jake said it himself. If you go way back, Jake has said it himself. It's really not necessary, because if you build on Titanx, anything build on Titanx that helps Titanx ultimately helps hyper, because remember, they're bonded together. That's the Hart's law in effect. So anything that's built, I don't care what project it is, that builds on Titanx is supporting hyper. And he said that in his own words. And I understand that now. So really, it's keep building on Titanx and it only helps hyper. So that being said, now we're in profit for mining, for making miners, and Titanx goes up. You got the small market cap working for you. The small market cap means many more X's, and I think the ratio is going to do a huge fill in a huge gap between the two because of what we're looking at, and the trade-off could be like 1 to 15 in the next few months. I predict heading into like December, you're going to be like at a 1 to 10 ratio plus with hyper. It'll double from where it was before, 1 to 5. And then that, my friends, since miners are not profitable in Titanx just yet, people are making them, but you can't mint that much. And the point of making miners and minting miners is to T rank, because more people are making miners. So it's not quite happening yet. The time will come when you should make them. I'm not personally doing it, but you got to remember this opportunity here. Jake was in a live stream several months back when Titanx was 11 million. He's like, it's so simple to go from 11 million to 30 million. Well, I want to take a look where Titanx is right now at this given second, right? From that 11 million that it was, during the times when it was dumping hard, at a $73 million market cap. So he went to, it's almost double from where he said it was going to be easy. And this seemed pretty easy as well. It jumped quick. And that's because people were aware of not only miners went back into profitability for hyper and started feeding the engines as far as the flywheels, but they realized how much inflation was going, to nothing. And we'll take a look at that here. We look at this all the time, but it's like the most beautiful thing you'll see in all of crypto right now. Look at this. Shoots down. So this is where I think when your hyper miners here in December, it's going to be a very good Christmas, I believe personally, for people that made hyper miners as far as the trade-off and the ratios. Because all this time that you have miners that got started by people in August when it went back to being profitable for hyper, that will be coming out in between, November. Let's take a look here. It's about August, October, November. So it'll start coming out, but gradually it's been burning the entire time. Then you got another Vortex injection that happens in December. December is going to be a good month. And regardless of inflation, because it's heavily bonded to Titanx, regardless, since Titanx is going to be here, it's going to rise the tides, right? It's going to rise the tides and do well. Let's take a look. Are you making miners on Hydra or other protocols as well? I'm doing Hyper, and I'm putting maybe like $100 a day. Let's see on this wallet. Different wallets, different strategies. This one I'm doing like $100 average. My other wallets I'm doing the equivalent like of a 0.2, even though you use Titanx. So roughly like $500 a day every day on my other ones. So I'm making a miners every day, but I'm gonna stop doing that by the end of October. Then I'm gonna just let it rest and stop. And that's for both of them. Because I don't want to go too far out. I don't want to get too far out in case like the bull market comes and goes and it ends in March 2025, where I suspect it could possibly come to an end. So that's just for the overall market for me. So the strategy is to sum it up here, taking my Titanx miners, selling half to make hyper miners to catch, and I predict and I'm speculating to catch a 1 to 10 offset ratio back to Titanx from Hydra when I can collect those. And in addition to that, the other half is going into DragonX, which DragonX is going to have a lot of support from not only Hydra itself, but the big payout on day 369. There's going to be farms. So DragonX already being hyper deflationary, paired up with soon to be hyper deflationary Titanx, that will rise. DragonX will rise, and the trade off could be a lot bigger down the road to ultimately end up with more Titanx. All roads lead to Titanx, because when you're going to cash out, you have Titanx, right? That you can cash out in an Ethereum Titanx pool. It's not one of those things where you have DragonX and you can sell into Ethereum. There's no LP for that. It's heavily bonded to Titanx. Titanx is the exit point where it's paired with Ethereum, right? And that LP will grow over time as the prices go up in market caps. You're going to see a lot of cool things happen, but no one has said in the chat yet. Anybody, have you ever competed with a smart contract for tokens that are becoming scarce on the market? Because you might not have people that even want to sell this bull market. So you have to get people that are willing to put up their tokens for sale. The smart contracts are going to be actively buying it. Users are going to be buying it. They're going to be battling, with all this slippage. It's going to be an environment that I've never seen. And I've been in crypto since 2015. I've never seen anything like it. You can have the RH manipulated Wix and all that, and he comes in with millions of dollars and people sell into it. But Hex was just continuing to inflate. Stakes were being unstaked, and more tokens were going on the market when stakes were ending, right? And this is like totally opposite, right? It's already got the built-in community that was bigger than Hex was early days. You got more people with more money that came from Hex. You got more experienced crypto users that came from Hex. So you have now almost a year of the Titanx ecosystem under your belt with the knowledge of how to play the miners, short-term miners, however you want to play it. But I think that people that I'm noticing that I've spoke to are going to Hydra, right? We'll go to the Hydra site here. Here's what they're doing, because they haven't released the beast yet to start buying and burning anything. So what people are doing in anticipation of the farms is they're doing like they're going, okay, let me do a 14-day miner, right? So a 14-day miner with 100-day max power is $795 at this given point, which would cost you 1 billion Titanx. The RI is crazy high right now, and the price dropped drastically, right? Because people, there's huge sell-offs on early miners that did like 1 or 2 day miners, stuff like that. So we'll go to the price really quick of Hydra. Take a look at this, right? Low market cap, like a lot of things can happen. The buy and burn is not triggered because they want to get rid of all the people that are trying to game it short term. But by not giving them any liquidity to exit or any option, but people that are not intending to sell that want to have tokens for the farms coming up are doing like 14 to 20 day to even 30-day miners right now. Not so much for the ROI, but to have the Hydra available, understanding that they're going to have to pay a lot of slippage early on to get that Hydra. Who knows when they click on the buy and burn? They can wait a month for all we know, right? To activate here. This is how they're getting Hydra in the short term to play the farm. So I was talking with a few of my friends, some of my whale buddies. I was like, let me understand this here. So you're not even concerned about the ROI to dump. They're like, well, no, bro, go look at the liquidity and look how it has nothing's been triggered. They don't want to buy and burn early miners and give them the ability to do that, to sell and massive profit. They want them to suffer the slippage and then bring it on whenever they feel like doing that. So that is like a strategy. I was like, okay, I can consider that, coming into Hydra and going, all right, well, if I can do that because of the ability to just do whatever amount of days I want with 100 max power, I could say, okay, well, if I want more, this is what the bigger hands are doing, and they're showing me. They're going, yeah, just come in here, do 1,000 power, do 21 days, pay the 8 Gs, and you end up with 1.6 billion tokens to farm. And you can pair that up in the farms or however the farms are going to be. So they're only speculating what the farms could be. The farms are like probably never seen before tokenomics, based off what I've seen Jake talk about live on camera. Why price on hyper jump after the Vortex was released? Yeah, so I answered that question earlier. This is the exact reason why, right? Because day 98, and we'll take a look at the white paper, right? Day 98 was going to release the 98-day cycle payout that gets released in hyper tokens, right? But you go, well, why? Why would they do that? Why would they sell? Well, look at the day 98 payouts got paid in hyper. That crashed the price, right? We'll take a look at the price. Let's go look at the price of hyper. And I talked a little bit about this already, but just to answer your question, right? So what does this mean? Well, the price is down 10%. Great. But now the Vortex is released. And now the Vortex over here, jumping back to the hyper site, now has all this Titanx that's going to buy and burn hyper at cheaper prices. So that means it burns more out of circulation. So it was lined up purposely for that reason. The payout, these people can hold their tokens or dump the price. They dump the price. Great. Our smart contract's going to buy cheaper hyper and burn it, right? So that's how it was lined up, and that's the thought process behind Jake and the founder. It's pretty smart, because you don't want you want to buy the cheapest amount of hypers you possibly can when you're coming from the smart contracts, so that you utilize it at its fullest, right? The more it buys for cheap, the better, right? So I think there's some good leverages here. Now, if you're somebody who's holding Dragon X, right? This is where I tell you guys I have different strategies for different wallets. So I have a wallet that has a massive amount of Dragon X. So I figured, all right, the Dragon X, I'm going to take a 20% of my Dragon X, swap it to Titanx to play the leverage on Dragon X Hydra, to come back out of Hydra later down the road. It may not be in December, it may be January or February, where then I could have a huge trade-off and get more Dragon X down the road. So let's look at the ratios here. This is all that people need to pay attention to, since minting is not going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing of the past pretty much for Titanx, is the ratios. So let's take a look at the ratio. What one Hydra gets you right now in Dragon X. One Hydra gets you 6.39 Dragon X. You see? You see what's going on here? This right here, being a leverage on Dragon X, can do multiple X's and outperform Dragon X, like Titanx outperformed. Dragon X outperformed Titanx. So the play would be to swap to make the miners to come out on top with Hydra. And maybe down the road, it's like 1 to 10 or 1 to 15 to get more Dragon X. So I sacrifice Dragon X to go into Titanx to make the miners to come back at the end of the road, whether that's January, February, whenever it may be, to ultimately have more Dragon X in my hands that I started with. That's the ratios you got to play. So you got to learn ratios. And I learned this early on in Pulse Chain because when I was first in Pulse Chain and there was nothing going on because nobody built on Pulse Chain when it first came out. The only thing that would happen on Pulse Chain was like these PDI narratives and all that. So the only way to make money and build your bag was ratio trading, right? And the ratio trades were like between like Pulse and PulseX and Pulse and Hex and whatever bag you wanted to build. I had to learn ratios. So I'm well prepared now for how ratios works in the world of Titanx because of my experience with Pulse Chain. And ultimately, you wanted the most Pulse Chain you could get, and you needed more of it because the price is going down. You're like, if I don't double up my bag, we're down 50%. Now I need to double up the bag to be even. And it just kept getting worse. So learning that and a bad experience from that, having to do that because of how much Pulse Chain dumped, it paid off in the long run where I'm playing this game very simply now at Titanx. I can start with nothing. Like I can have $1,000 and I can go get Titanx and know where to put it to turn that into thousands later. It's very strategic. And a lot of people aren't talking this. I watch a lot of streams and I think like, oh, they explain, all the smart contracts pretty well and they do this and that, but there's not like a whole lot of on-camera action going on and the explanation of the ratios as far as time and speculation. So I'm trying to speculate for you. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm giving you my speculation on what I'm doing. So I'm going to make these miners every day on all my wallets, right? You'll see I'm doing like a few to come out per day on Hyper right now. I'm going to continuously do that until my end day is about January 1st. Then I'm going to sit and wait for the ratios to play out. They could play out right away, or it could be, months down the road. It could be some time. We don't know yet. But I assume because Titanx is going hyper deflationary soon here, that may factor in pretty quick, I do believe. Same thing with Hydra. I'm going to extend that out, though, as far as my wallet's making miners. I'm going to extend this out and make sure I have my end date by making miners every day, or they're going to end every day. Never have a gap between days. I'm going to have a miner coming out every day until about, I would say, the end of January, since this started just now, right? And then I'm going to let it sit and wait for the ratios to play out. Because by the time we're 3 months into 2025, right, you already see the numbers here. There ain't going to be any other way but to buy Titanx off the market. Right? Look at, there's no inflation. But buy Titanx off the market. But you're going to be competing with smart contracts and other users. And people are going to be running around like, how do I get this Titanx? Well, it was having Titanx before and playing the ratios to end up with more down the road. That's the play. If you don't play it that way, I truly believe that you're going to be that person here buying the tops, trying to get more Titanx to play this game too late. So now is the time to prepare. The perfect time before we slide on down to no inflation and go hyperdeflationary, where you're here in 2025 buying the hype. Oh my God, it's becoming more scarce. There's no more tokens. I didn't realize that because there was still inflation coming out. I just didn't see it. I'm going to be selling my bags to you at a premium and exiting the bull market and sitting in stables in the going into a bear while you're selling your bags for a loss, buying them off me for a premium. That's how these cycles work. All right. What do you think is going to happen long term? Will it just be staking / ratio game indefinitely? I'm hearing things of like omni-chain. I'm hearing things, more build on Titanx. So there's going to be a lot more probably game theory and even a full-blown blockchain as far as omni-chain. I don't know what they're going to do with that. It's going to be a lot of things. The thing about Titanx is that it's designed to do that I like. All right. We're going to go into a bull market, guys. It's going to end quicker than you could realize. That's how these cycles have played out. And the rule of thumb is you build during the bear, you sell during the bull. I know one thing that Titanx is going to do, even after the bull market ends, is going to keep building. And it's going to build until the next cycle because you have all these build on Titanx that's been doing it already during a bear. during bad times. And it successfully has seen what happens when you do that, heading into the scenario we're about to jump into. So you got to think it's going to build its way into the next cycle. And 4 years down the road, let's say we hit 1,000x from the 6 zeros and a 1-6 bottom, and we hit 1,000x, and it corrects. It corrects during the bear market like everything else does, regardless of inflation being non-existent and all that. You have the market corrects. Everything goes down. It goes down, and you're only, out of 2 or 3x from that bottom. During that time, it keeps building and building. Then it gradually goes back up, and that 1,000x becomes a floor heading into the next bull. And then it can do another 1,000x because guess what? The system kept building. The tokens are super hyper deflationary for a long time now, years. And then that's when you can see future huge gains, where if you hold on to that, you'll be like, oh, I did experience a 10,000x in Titanx, but it came years after the fact. I got the first 1,000x, and then I held on, and I was in stakes, and I did all this and participated during the bear and build, and I got 10,000, even by design, 2,000 days from now, where 55,000x is on the table based off the code and the difficulties of the miner and all the math behind it. A 55,000x increase on being able to make a miner adds up to a lot of gains that can potentially happen, right? Are you making Titanx miners or just claiming the ones you already have? I'm just claiming and splitting them up and playing the game. I'm not making them. I don't see the need to make them with how difficult it is to make the miners. I don't think it makes sense versus just trading it off into DragonX or playing the Hyper or Hydra game and using the leverage to get more. I think you're going to get more that way. That's the only option. I think people will make miners now, and they may regret it because I don't think the frenzy is going to be there. I think Jake has understood like the best thing for the ecosystem right now is to go away from any inflation and utilize Hydra and Hyper to, bootstrap new users with all the hype of the ROI and to start burning the heck out of the tokens out of existence. And then the ones that are created like Hydra and Hyper. That's what I think. What year do you think the peak of the bull market? Not a financial advisor. March 2025. March 2025. That's what I think. All right. I think we start the bull market right after the elections. You're going to see a lot of green activity until elections, right? And once that is done on the cycles, the halvings happen at every, election time. And that's why after the elections, Bitcoin always goes on a run. It goes parabolic after an election concludes. And then it happens, and then it ends, and it's see you later. You have a small window to make your money. Hopefully you make enough to live off that until the next cycle and build and ride the next one. And then in the next cycle, there's going to be another halving. Bitcoin will be much more scarce. It'll have the ability to run even harder. Up until like the 2 cycles from now will be where we have the possibilities of $1 million Bitcoin. It's not going to happen this cycle, but maybe we hit 150 between 150 and $250,000, and then we have a 4-year halving. And then you think about Titanx has a halving not every 4 years; it has a halving every year on the difficulty to make its miners. So, if we're on track like clockwork, March of 2025, and I'm pretty sure Jake knows that as well. So the window here, right, wouldn't be to keep making miners beyond collecting them in March. Matter of fact, I don't want to collect any miners on any platform, even in February. I want all my miners that are 88-day max from Hyper to Hydra to end weeks before February so that I can be doing that ratio trade-off back in the Titanx. So I have more. The more I have, the more I could save for the long run. If I have more Titanx, I have to sell less at the peak prices and then keep that bag for the next cycle to make more. That's the strategy I'm doing. I wanted to hopefully I explained that to you guys well enough to absorb it. rewatch the video. Make sure you pound the like button, all that good stuff. But I'll tell you right now, you ain't gonna hear nobody explain it like that. I think there's a lot of people there. This is their first time experiencing a bull market. They can't wait, and that experience is going to be good for them. They're going to learn. But the way cycles work, in addition to that stuff I've never seen before, these mechanics, and we're in for a huge surprise. I have my stakes going until February. I would say that's good. I would say that's good. Even even if we go into a bear, I don't know. I don't know where it. I don't know what happens to the price of Titanx. Titanx could do 1,000x from the bottom, and in the bear have a floor where you're still like 5x from the bottom at the very lowest point. So you still may be in profit the entire bear market based off this hyperdeflationary mechanic. Shoot, conservatively, maybe it goes to your 2 or 3x if you did buy the bottom, because everything's measured from the bottom. No one's going to measure it from today's price or yesterday's price. So if you think it's going to 1,000x, okay, well, pull out your calculator. You plug in 6 zeros, right? 6 zeros and a 1 6. Let me make sure I got 6 zeros there. Times 1,000x, that's 3 zeros and a 1 6. If it happened, right? I like to run conservative numbers and say 6 zeros and a 1 6, maybe a 500x conservative. That brings you to 4 zeros and an 8. That 8 number, right? And it peaks at a 500x. That's from the bottom. But from today's prices, that's only a 20x from today's price. So unless you bought the bottom, it's not going to measure 500x from today. That means what could happen if there's a 500x is a multiple of 20. And that could be life-changing for a lot of people, depending on how you played it. 280-day miners was the play. I got them coming every day on multiple wallets. Every day, collecting, playing the leverage game, playing the ratios, and we'll see what happens, right? I do think you're going to have a lot better odds than I thought prior to this, thinking Hex was going to be the play for me because of Sack Daddy and all that. There's going to be a lot of Hex holders that are disgruntled and want to get out. And that's going to be a lot of sell pressure, even on a sacrifice address that has billions of dollars. And it has to split it between, multiple tokens. And I just don't see Hex outperforming Titanx. With that being said, it could. You never know. Richard Hart. I'm going to do a live stream tomorrow about the scenario with Richard Hart, about him possibly tax evasion, going to jail. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Off topic. What do you think about Hex right now? Let me bring goalposts up real quick. I'll tell you what I think about Hex. I think there's something strange. All right, take a look at this. A few days ago, it was out that Richard Hart was being accused of tax evasion. Like Finland was going after him. All the influencers came out and they're like, debunked. This is fake. A couple days later, all the mainstream media outlets for crypto were like, no, Finland is working internationally with the US to figure out, what to do here to track this guy down, because he supposedly owes hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever the number it is. So when that news really struck yesterday and it started to go like mainstream, all of a sudden, for no good reason, the Pulse ecosystem started to pump up. So I looked at that and I go, what a coincidence. The news comes out that's like verifying, like now they're not saying, oh, it's fake. Like now they're saying he didn't do tax evasion. Everything's fine, guys. The crowd control from the Hex Maxis. Isn't it weird that when the news comes out and it's like, okay, this is officially happening, that there's a pump in the ecosystem? That's called damage control. Mop up on aisle 9. And who has the money to do that? Richard. And then he sends out this tweet we'll look at, all lined up. If you look at the timeline, all lined up. He starts shooting out tweets of his attorneys and all that. But he says, sustained double-digit price increases look cool. Like, look it, the price is up and it's sustained. I thought to myself, what a pump and dump opportunity, to sell and wait for the dip, because there's no good news on his side. I don't care who you are. I love Richard Hart, but you got to realize something. All the people that try to beat the system and fight the system, like the Andrew Tates, Top G and all that, they get put in jail or ultimately killed off. Richard Hart reminds me of McAfee, who was like a cybersecurity warlord. He was tapped into the government, knew things he shouldn't know, was running from taxes. It is because he thought he didn't have he thought he was above the tax laws and didn't apply to him. And he was so smart, he thought this is why it's unconstitutional to pay these taxes. Where Richard Hart truly believes it's going against our natural born rights as citizens of the world, and in the US especially, and blockchain is a freedom of speech. He's like McAfee in that sense, where he's trying to take on the system. And you either end up in jail like Top G or like McAfee, dead in jail. So I think he's heading down a path where, listen, you can have the top 11 lawyers in the world. The system is corrupt. It's designed for you to lose. I have been pleading with this Richard Hart person since this all started for a long time to just say, Richard, for the love of God, just pay the SEC their money and move on with your life and build, and they'll leave you alone, right? They will leave you alone. We don't need you to fight for our blockchain rights. Leave it alone, bro, because it's not a winning scenario. He will go down and remembered as the person that fought for blockchain, but unfortunately goes down for it because you cannot beat the system. As bad as I want to see the SEC lose, they have that, and now you have these other charges. Well, what happened with Top G? First, he has these human trafficking charges and all these things that were apparently not happening. Now he's facing tax evasion. Same thing with Richard Hart. The system will take you down, bro. We don't need that. That's my too far to thought about what's going on with Richard Hart. It's pretty sad to watch it unfold in real time, and then watch that desperation pump yesterday. Whether it continues, and SAC funds have to go up to do anything. Sorry for that. That was a rant. So, guys, don't forget, Josh, you're the only one who keeps it real. Shout out. I appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. I want to bring my honesty, my bluntness, keeping it real, and my points of view, understanding I could be 100% wrong about everything I say on camera. I could be 100% right. It's all about speculation in cryptocurrency. So if I share my speculation with this guy, he shares his speculation back with me. We absorb the information without arguing. We agree to disagree. Then we can come to a medium agreement or even a medium thought within ourselves, because there's certain things people say that change my thought process and it makes it better. It becomes like a hybrid thought. It evolves into something that turns out to be a much greater play for me ultimately down the road. So it's good to pick people's brains. That's why I'll have Richie B on here. As long as Richie B's around, I'll have him here next week, because I think the Titanx community, they misunderstand him. Whether you love him or hate him, put all that stuff aside with all the drama that's going on on X. No, too old for that to think about it. I want Richie V on here to pick his brain, because he's been through as many cycles as me and he's seen it all. It's psychological warfare between yourself and the charts and what's happening. Human emotion, with the way you react when you see your first God candle and you sell too early. And then when you have the experience, when you still do that. So what has saved me and somebody like a vet, like a lot of people, is staking, is miners, stuff like that. So don't forget to pound the like button, drop a comment, post it all over. Till next time, we'll do it again. Yeah, dog.